Hi, and by now you know my name is Harry Toozle, and let me tell you about my business focus challenge in two parts. I'm going to make you think about what goals you want to achieve in the short and long term, and then what to do about achieving those goals. And in this video, it's all going to be about the goals you want to achieve, your profit, your sales, your customers, and your products and services. Now, a little bit more than that, but that will be the core of it. Now, at any point, if you want to talk to me, if you think you want to do this in a workshop situation or a one-on-one consultation, which is free and 2 months free coaching, then just click that for 2 months free coaching request button, send me a request, or use my contact form. Uh, we can have a telephone conversation and you can pull out at any point, really. So I'm not going to keep you beholden just because you made a request. A request means just that. I'll tell you more, you'll decide. Now, this is the type of thing I'll do. I will do it in two parts. I will ask about your vision, your goals, and your strategy. And then I'm going to ask about how are you planning and managing it? And we'll do some reflective overviewing on what areas in the business needs improving. In a real workshop situation, this is not very systematic because I can listen and I can hear where the areas are that there's shortcomings. So in this part, vision, goals, and strategy, I'm going to ask you to do two steps. Number one, ask what do I want, which is all your goals, and how will I get it, which is about what customers and products do I need to focus on. So the step one, vision, this is not a long one. It's about where do you want to be 1, 5, or 10 years from now. It should convey a very simple message about where you intend going, not some complex thing that you're impressing a lecturer or someone else. It's about what will get you to achieve what you want to achieve. What would you like to achieve? What do you have in mind for your business? What's your primary aim? And don't follow other people's rules, follow your own. Now, this is what I've done in the workbook. You can see there's a very short area there, right? Not a lot of space to write. I don't really want you to write a lot about your vision and goals. I want you to write about your vision in very short terms because then we'll get straight onto objectives. Now, with objectives, I'm going to ask you to specify your profitability targets and the most important financial results in your business. Now, in this video, I'm not going to ask you to do everything, but as you go through the workbook, you can actually add some more and customize it as it suits you. What is your market position, your competitive standing that you want to achieve in your business? And then what is the most important customer and product service related results you want to achieve? Now, with that said, we're going to do two things. Step one, profit and sales, and step two, customers and products and services. And we're going to do it using a spreadsheet, and I'll demonstrate what I want you to think about. And you can either use your workbook, or you can use a piece of paper, or you can develop your own spreadsheet. If I talk to you one-on-one, I can give you some more tools. With that, one, profit and sales. Let's look at that first. And in the workbook, you will have a sheet like this, which tells you your current. So you put that in your 1 year and your 5 years. Now I'm going to demonstrate this using a spreadsheet. So have a look at the spreadsheet, not at my wonderful face, and see what I say about how to do this in such a way that you set targets. Not an accounting exercise. Remember that. It is not an accounting exercise. It is about you setting targets and saying, what do I want to achieve? Yes, being realistic and all those other rules one can set about goals, but uh, where do I want to be? What is my dream? Not a pipe dream that's just out there and silly, but what do I want to achieve? So let's look at those spreadsheets next. Uh, I'll go straight onto that. Hi, what you see right in front of you is my very simple and very complicated spreadsheet. Now, there you'll see a sales figure and then a future figure. Now, in the workbook, I've given you now, 1 year from now, and 5 years from now. Now, imagine the future one there being either 1 or 5 for this illustration. So let's say you're making $1 million of sales, or whatever figure you're using, then doesn't matter what. Now, let's imagine the cost of sales is 400,000, that figure there. Then your gross profit would be obviously 600,000, less expenses, net profit 250,000. And most of us would be quite happy and ecstatic with that type of net profit. Many would, others would say it's not enough. So where you are at, I'm not sure, and maybe you've got cash in the bank. Let's imagine $100,000. Now, this would be a fairly good situation for most people. Very simply put, what do you want to do in the future then? So one may say, okay, I want to do $1.15 million. Cost of sales is still at 40%. I've kept the ratio. So your gross profit becomes 690,000. The expenses more or less the same because there's not a significant increase in turnover to justify any more expenses maybe. And then a profit of 340,000 and hopefully cash in the bank of 120,000. Now, this future could be a year from now. 5 years from now, you might put in a figure of $2 million and say, well, this is what I want. Now, the exercise here is not meant to be an accounting exercise where you look at your past. Don't go and look at your accounting records and put in that there and then say, let's add 10% for the future, for the next year, or if it's 5 years from now, let's add 50% or something. Very simple. This is a target setting exercise. Now is your stake in the ground, and you can put that down as it is, as it really is. But when I discuss this with people one-on-one in a workshop situation, I almost force people to guess these things and use their best judgment, because the future and planning and leadership and management is about using your judgment rather than doing an auditing or an accounting exercise. It's a different mindset. So when I talk to people one-on-one, I often don't even use these spreadsheets. I hardly use them. I usually use a piece of paper, my workbook, and we just sit there and we discuss and we write things down, because the whole point is to think differently, to think about the future. So let's put that 1150 back in there and all the other figures will fall in place. No, they don't, because I have just put a, there you are. Now, as I promised, I'm doing this exactly as I would do it with a person in a workshop. Make you think about the things that ought to be said and done. I'm not trying to impress you with the slickness of the video production or anything else. The idea is that you get a flavor of how I work with you, so you can possibly make your mind up about that too. Now, once this is set, now let me just say something about this. It's essential in any business that you have a handle on your financial controls, that you understand sales, cost of sales, gross profit, expenses, net profit, cash flow, basically possibly more if you could, but this is essential. Now, for most people, I'll put them to sleep talking about it, say, well, I know that, but if for any reason you do not have a handle on all those areas, do that. That's the most important thing you could do. Now, that is setting financial targets. Financial targets are not difficult to set. The difficulty is really asking what is possible in the future, what could happen in the future. And that is quite difficult. That becomes the area where you say, I am not sure what can happen. Well, this is about setting targets and then going to the next phase and saying, how will I do it? Now, you can always come back and say, well, now that I've looked at the next phase, which is step 2, I'm not so sure about it. Let's change some of these figures. Now, the second step, now that you've set your goals, is going to be all about, number 1, customers. So that's the second one in our series. So again, you will have a sheet that looks like this. What sales are you making currently there, and what is your targets? And this is what the workbook spreadsheet looks like. You can either use this, do it by hand, or you can use a spreadsheet. My suggestion is, when you're thinking and planning at the moment, write it on paper. That's what I do in my workshops. I literally write on paper. We take a piece of paper and sometimes we just redraw it in a way that suits the person better. Because the minute you go into a spreadsheet, you get into an accounting and an analytical mode. And this exercise is not about being accurate or auditing. It's about setting a target for the future. It's about thinking. So get away from using the laptop or computer, which I do, but start thinking and just write it on a piece of paper. Where do we want to be? Think. So with that said, have a look at the spreadsheet and how I do it. Now, we've just gone through an exercise of setting your sales and profit targets. Now, in reality, you may take a few minutes to think through that yourself and work it out and do it. And you can do it either on your own spreadsheet or on a piece of paper or on the workbook I provide. Very simple. But let's now look at your next step. Step two is all about setting customer targets and product targets. And often after customer targets in a real workshop, we're finished. We've done so much that the person has got a really clear view of where they want to be, and the products are at hand. But I'm going to go through everything because we're not having that conversation, and that is the limitation. On the other hand, it's also the advantage because we go through this much quicker than in a workshop. So let's look there at your customer targets. Now, again, the now is fairly set in concrete. What I've done there is I've just put some imaginary figures in. Customer A, B, C, D, and E. Now, this could be customer groupings. It could be actual customers, people that you work with, actual names. It depends on the business you're running. So, what the type of business you have, how you will target customers, and how you will promote them. That's really usually how you group them. With that said, let's look at what's going to happen a year from now. Now, when I do the targets around customers and products, I only set them for a year ahead because we can imagine what type of customers we'll have in 5 years or 3 years, and that's useful. But when we set real measurable targets, we can't really go further than the year because that's what's going to set you up for the next year and the next, and then eventually your 5-year and your 10-year goals. So I've put down there your target is 1150. That's your target that you've set in your sales and profit targets. If you look at there, that's the target we set, 1150 sales. So with that said, let's assume that number A, B, and C is current people that you have, and you think you will increase that to 600,000. You will increase that to a fair amount. That area is sort of stabilizing, decreasing slightly. This one is falling away, but there may be a whole new group of customers or a whole new customer coming on board, and there's another 50,000. Now, let me just say something about this. If A, B, C, D, E is current customer, A, B, and C, and D is current customers. If those people there, A, B, C, D, and E, is current customers, then what you will be looking at is an increase here. That is usually, given the type of business you have a fairly good gut feel of how that will be, or you've done some analysis. But if you're a totally new business, then what I do to people is say, look here, if you do not know where all these customers are new customers, then you have to do a different exercise, and you have to do something like this. Take that target and double it. And say, I want double the target. Now, that is just a sum. So you will say, okay, from A, you wouldn't have a now. The now would be a zeros. Okay, let's do that for now because that would be, I don't have anything at the moment. So there's nothing. So I want from group A, I need to target, well, let's say 600,000. Group B, 425, 140. Group D, whoever they may be, 200,000. And group E, another 150,000. Now, why did I do this? What I say is try and double that figure, because what you're putting in here is not real figures. It is not that you will actually achieve them. This is targets. So if you double the pot that you're targeting, your chance of actually hitting your target of 1150 is much better. And you can now add to that E, F, G, and you can actually keep on adding till you've come to double that 1150. Now, I wouldn't do it with only 5 groups. Let's say there's 5 major customer groups. Then, yep, I can get 1 million from those people. That's possible. It's possible to get 1 million. I could get somewhere in the 500,000 for this lot. That's not a very good market. This market may be 400,000. And then this market, not too sure about, but it could be 300. Now, that's exactly the conversation I have with people in the beginning. It's not about getting accurate figures. The 115 you'll see there is more than double now. The whole idea of doing this is not to come up with perfect figures, but to come up with figures that says this is what's possible. When I have my first conversation, I say, okay, where is your sales coming from? You've told me you're making $1 million. Where is it coming from? The person may do something like this: 400,000 from that group. I'm getting 300,000 from this group. I'm getting another 200 from that group. I'm getting 150,000 from that group. And that's when I say, well, you've gone 50,000 over your sales. And then we'll say, well, okay, it's close enough because we're not doing an audit. But for the purpose of this, some people, I want to keep it accurate, 100,000. Nothing from that group yet. And then we'll say, where can this go? Now, if that's your real sales, A, B, C, D, and E, you will just go and say, okay, I can grow that to 500,000. I can grow this to 400,000. I can grow this. And he's, oh no, that group is going down. That's bad market. It's for some reason, okay. And this one, very unsure about that lot, 25,000. And oh, I've gone well over. Now there, I've got nothing yet. But I think I can make 150 from them. That's not impossible. And you've got your target quite a bit more than your actual target, so not unreasonable. Try and get that figure there as high as possible. This is not an audit. That's how simple this exercise is. It sounds complex when I start doing this on a spreadsheet, but when you sit on a piece of paper, you really say, where am I getting it from now? And people have those records, and you just have a quick look. Don't do an audit. And then you say, what do I want from a year from now? Where can this go? And the real trick is to take this group there, the new people. Get as many of those as you can. Very simple. With that said, go back to your sales targets, and you can see in the future, I want this. If you put a 5-year target there, well, I would suggest put a now, a 1 year, and a 5-year or a 3-year target. But when it comes to customers, do not put targets beyond a year from now. What's happening now and a year from now. Now you can see what I've done. It's not a difficult exercise. It is not impossible. It is not a rocket science exercise. It's a thinking exercise rather than an exercise in trying to be very, very fancy. Now, the third one is all about products and services. Now, in a real workshop, by this time, we've probably exhausted what a person wants to plan for, and this is well in hand of it. But I'm going to go through them anyway because I do not know what you need, so I'll put it on a spreadsheet how I would approach products and service development, and that goes around innovation. So we're not going through innovation and how to innovate. We're just saying how do you set targets around this, and it's very similar to what you do for customers. And again, there's a spreadsheet like this. What is your current products, and what products do you want to sell? And it's really saying I've got this range of products, and I need to add this to meet my future demand for and to keep my growth and keep my sales up. Often people don't even want to do that, but let's look at it. We've done this figure here, and ignore the previous ones. I've just put figures there. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is your major products or your product groups. If it's products, it might be a huge list. So you could use a spreadsheet. It depends on how detailed you want to do this. If product development and service development is that important, and remember, when I say products, I really mean products, services. And thanks, Microsoft, for fixing my spelling and capitalization. But that is what it is. It is products and services. Now, let's assume you've made these sales from those. There, 350, 400, 250 for now. Now, that depends on yourself. Now, the next question I would have is, well, what will you sell of that product next year? Again, a year from now. And you do the same exercise as for customers. And you say, well, that product will increase. This product is maybe a dead one. That line may be dying. It may be Volkswagen wheels. People no longer buy them. We don't know. But you go to that's going to go down. But there's a whole new market coming on tap, and that will give me 100,000, and that product is going to be very popular. I'm very sure of it. Go up to 300,000. So I've done this one a bit quicker than the other one because you can see I could just take this out and just play the game again and say, okay, where will that product come from? Okay, I'm going to say sell the same next year. Oh, that one can be very good. I can make quite a bit of money out of that, and it'll be around figures. This one dying. This one, oh, that's the big new market coming on board, and this is even a bigger one coming on board. Can really take off up to 300,000. There's my target. Your target is substantially more than your actual figures, and I would suggest you try and get more in here and get that figure there as high as you can. But the real challenge in business always is to get this right, get your customer targets right, because once you go after the customers, you probably have a good idea of what to sell them. Now, you can see how simple this is. You set your profit and sales targets first. Let's just go through and run through that in one go. You set them for now and in the future, and on that workbook, you can get 1 and 5 years. Very simple. Then, but it's a thinking exercise. Then you do a customer targets exercise where you will have this, you'll have a good idea of what's happening now, and then do this for the future. Now, I only put 5 there because I'm just trying to demonstrate, but you may have 10, 20 there. If it gets too long, start categorizing. And then product targets, do the same thing there. Now, this exercise is often one which, in a discussion, uncovers a lot of issues that needs to be fixed in the business, things that needs to be improved, areas that needs to be looked at, better management, better systems, better marketing, better accounting systems. One can mention it, but one can make a huge long list that depresses the heck out of you. And that's not the point. The point is really in a conversation that I do is to say, what is the most important results? What is the most important things you have to achieve? Have a look at that spreadsheet I'm using. That will give you a great idea of how I approach and what I suggest. Now, what I'm going to do now is just go through all three. You're setting your targets and looking at customers, looking at products and services just in one go. As I would do it in a real thing, just live, one go, and you'll get an idea of what I do. I'm going to do it quickly, not as quickly as I would do it when I talk to people. So I will say, okay, what are you doing right now? And the person will say an X amount. But let's say you say to me 500,000 there, and it comes down to that's your overheads and cash in the bank. Well, we don't even want to talk about that. Then the target for the future will never be 5 years. It will be 6 months or right now. So what can we do right now to turn this figure around? And the next question is, how long can you last with that type of losses? And I will be very, very straight. I have actually said to some people, what is the line in the sand that we will draw that if you go below this, you will have to start looking at liquidation. I do not try and make people happy with their business at the cost and then going over the cliff, but just keep on paying me. That's just idiotic. I want you to succeed on your terms, and I want you to succeed, and I don't want to get a cut out of anything or do anything with you if we can't fix this. So often in the first session, if this comes up, I may not sign you up as a client because I will ask you, how can you afford anyone? I'll be that straight. With that said, we'll say, well, what do you need to make? Forget the future. What do you need to make? Whether this future is 6 months or, and we say, well, if I make 600,000, what happens? Well, that's better. It's $100,000 of sales. I say, well, what's the problem? Why can't you get there? Now, never that easy. But that's what I will do. That's simple. So, but let's assume you tell me you're making the million. And usually the figures put down here are the type of figures that says the business is going fine. And there's some, I actually don't want to know what your cash in the bank is. I'm just saying, have you got those? The real figures I ask about people is, what is your sales at the moment? What's your sales figure? and what is your profit. If those two are set, then I'll go from there. And then what do you want to do in the future? I want to do 1.2 million. Yes. Now, that looks fairly good. Now, what is your customer targets? Now, your target should be 1.2, and you know what I'll do. If you've never done this before, I'll make you double that. So I will make you make a long list and basically come up with a figure there that ends up at 2.4 million. That's what I would do. Now, this is not realistic. I've not done that. I'm not going to do the actual exercise, but double your target. That's simple. And then product targets and service targets, you don't necessarily have to double it because no one's going to make double the amount of possible products. It's just not effective. But you will say, well, what products is going to be needed to meet this target? And I'm not doing a matrix where you try and match every product to every customer. That's not necessary. Now, with that said, you get a good idea of how I approach the workshop with people. You can do this yourself. You're not going to get the benefit of me talking back and asking some insightful questions, and sometimes forcing people to move ahead and move forward, and sometimes really saying, well, no, take stock of this. If I get there and you're giving me a figure there that ends up in some horrible negative situation like that, I will say, no, let's stop. What do we do right now? How can I help you? What is the key milestones to get this turned around right now? Usually it's going to be around marketing, very little about product development. It's about improving yourself. Um, I do not want you to work with me unless I can help you improve. And that's the first thing. So you can see it depends totally and utterly on how I deal with people. But you can do this yourself. But for goodness sake, be honest with yourself. Do not keep going in the face of adversity. And if you think you need help and you say, well, I can't pay this guy, give me a ring anyway. I am sure to be able to talk to you over a few minutes, and I'm quite happy to come and talk to you, even over Skype or come and see you. I can always make time. Right, you've listened through all that I had to say, all the great wisdom about how to set targets. What you will probably realize, it is a very simple exercise. I do not believe in rocket science solutions. Business is not about rocket science. It's about decision making and planning. A lot of the value people get from me is that sounding board effect. So if you need to talk to me, go to my website. If you're on there and looking at the video through there, just use the contact form, or even better, send a request using that 2 months of free business coaching offer. And if you complete that, I will be in contact with you. At that point, you may just say, I just wanted to have a chat. I don't really want to take it any further. I just want to hear it a little bit. And I'm not going to say, well, you asked for 2 months business coaching, therefore you've got to do it. Um, that is not very clever, and it's rather silly for me to do that. So with that said, I really hope to speak to you soon. I hope this has been of value to you. And do look at the next video, because it's all about what planning is required and what management and leadership. Very simple. You can get the idea of how simple I make things. All the best with your business and with your life.